Hi guys, Aaron from Boostock. Today I'd like to have a little chat about camshaft oil splash plates and injector duty cycle and their relationship to each other. And most people are just going to scratch their head at that statement, but let me delve in and explain this to you. Now, I stole this little picture down here from Shane T. I strongly recommend you go watch his video if you want more elaboration on this. I'm just going to skim across the top. But, so if we take the intake valve event as this, like open to shut in this particular situation, and we've gone from, say, a pump fuel to E85 and we need a whole bunch more fuel, and we add a whole bunch more injector duty cycle. So we need to get more fuel into the engine. Now, the cheats way is just add duty cycle, which I'm going to explain how that can be an issue. So say we need this much fuel and we start spraying here. Obviously, the intake valve is not going to open till there. So we spray for this time period. While the crank is rotating, we're waiting for it to open the valve. The valve opens, we spray for the whole valve open event. So this first part of the event of the fuel delivery, it's just puddling on the back of the intake valve. Now, some guys will try and change the timing of the fuel, and they'll do something like this picture. Now, it doesn't matter how you do this picture, you end up with fuel on the back of the intake valve. So how does that relate to this problem? Well, because the puddle sits on the valve, it's not mixed into the airflow very well. And typically it doesn't burn particularly well. And you'll commonly see more fuel in your oil because it gets past the rings. So what happens then is, because the oil temps at 100, 105 degrees C, typically that will burn off moisture and normal running fuel vapors, and they'll come up out of the motor, through the rocket cover, out the PCV system, and get burnt by the turbo. Go through the turbo and get burnt. So these little things that I make, and I've been making them for quite a while, are so good at catching oil and separating oil from the vapor that when you've got excessive fuel in your oil, these actually make it hard for some of that to leave. So if you're in this situation where you've gone from, say, a 98 fuel over to, say, E85 or a methanol blend fuel or an oxygenated race fuel or something like that, and you've just punched in, say, from spitballing 70% duty cycle to 90, and you've got this situation here where the valve is shut and it's puddling on the back of the valve, it will still burn some of it, but you'll typically see excess fuel contamination in your oil, especially if you send it off to get tested. Or alternatively, you'll notice you'll go from X amount of miles, say 5,000 miles, from an oil change to 2,000 miles because it's all dirty and black and disgusting, and it actually will smell like fuel, whichever fuel blend you're using. So because the fuel vapors are struggling to come up and come out because this is trying to drive the oil back down and do what it's designed to do, we have a situation where the fuel vapors and the moisture vapors can get trapped underneath the plate, and it can actually curdle the oil. I've seen it in 3 engines now, and all of them are struggling with this issue here with the injector duty cycle. So the first guy took it off, and then he struggled with oil out the rocket covers, which is why he bought this, and he didn't know what to do. So he refitted it, popped it back on his engine, and he had oil started to go off color and started to foam and curdle and do all sorts of weird, funky things, and he couldn't work out why. And after a bit of examination and digging around, we worked out that the injector duty cycle was wrong, and it was causing these issues. So if you have an issue where you're seeing the oil doing weird things, first thing I ask you to do is just check this situation. Make sure that's right. If you're going from a pump fuel to an oxygenated fuel or an methanol blended fuel or a race fuel, that kind of thing, have a chat to whoever's doing the tune on your vehicle and make sure your injectors are up to the task. And not just the injectors, obviously, the whole fuel system, the pumps, the fuel filters, everything. Because if you end up in this situation, apart from this issue, there are other issues related to this issue. You get bad fuel burn, you can get detonation, destroys oil. It has a whole plethora of issues that you need to, you can look into it. It's very common. A lot of guys struggle with it once you start getting long injector duty cycles. So if you're one of those guys who have seen this and had a struggle with this, I hope this helped you guys. This will only affect probably 1 or 2% of the guys who have ever bought these things and never had a problem, but it's something to be aware of. There's guys in the industry who play with these things and they might see it sometimes. I hang around racetracks a bit where I can, and I've only seen it, like I said, 3 times, but it's happened to 3 guys. I'm sure it's happened to others. So I hope that helps. Hope you guys get a better run on your engines, and these things work so damn well that if you have an issue somewhere else, it can sometimes highlight it. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Have a good day, guys. See yous.